What's up, Sword Family? Welcome to the Teahouse. Oh, wow. Wasn't actually expecting that many comments. I was expecting most people to still be at the convention, but it looks like there's at least a few people here, so I appreciate that. Thank you. So we're going to be finishing, or at least attempting to finish, our discussion on the dynasties of China. If we don't get through all of it tonight, well, there's always next time. But about that, I will again, and please accept my apologies for the incredibly short notice on canceling the stream last Saturday. But my brother and sister-in-law and my nephew came down for my mom's birthday, and they decided to go out to dinner, and I was not informed of this until like half an hour beforehand. So I had already set up the stream, and I just kind of had to cancel it last minute. And I will not be here next weekend either, because our intrepid captain, Joe Bachman, as well as Don and Rich, will be doing their rain check show over on Kick for the one they were going to be doing in the end of January, I think. Something like that. So I will be taking next Saturday off to make sure that everyone can go hop over on Kick and watch Joe and Rich and Don go do their thing and talk about all the awesome people on indiecd.com or .org. Sorry. So if we don't get through all the dynasties tonight, you might have to wait 2 weeks, but I'm going to try really, really hard to get through the last half of this, because I have other things in mind for the rest of the shows this month. And I also want to, not really announce, but I want to say that a month from today will be, let me just make sure that I'm not giving out the wrong age, because I don't want to be getting in trouble. Yes, a month from today will be Jackie Chan's 72nd birthday. And I have an idea for something that I'm going to do on that. Probably not on that day itself, because that will be a Tuesday. So I'll be working that day, so I won't be able to do anything that day itself. But I have a plan. And later on, next month, will be Jet Li's 63rd birthday on the 26th of April. So I also have a plan to do on that day, which will be a Sunday. So, yeah. And I also got confirmation that my episode of the Keep Kicking podcast with Paul Coffey will go live May 5th, which will be a Tuesday. It'll be a Tuesday. So keep an eye out for that. Once it goes live, I will be sharing it on Facebook and Instagram and Threads and anywhere else that I can possibly think to share it. So everyone will get a chance to see it. And now, let's go ahead and roll through these comments. And for the people that are wondering, the comments from last Saturday, they show up on YouTube but they don't show up on StreamYard. The first comment on here is from Kitty at 5:07 p.m. So anything that was mentioned or discussed last Saturday, comments aren't here, but they are on the YouTube video. So, and first through the door, as I said, is Kitty at 5:07. Hey, hello, kitten. Carl, about 10 minutes later, greeting Kitty. And Donna greeting Kitty and the Wisman dude. I hope you're feeling better, Donna. I heard you got sick. That sucks. Carl greeting Donna and Ruby joining us. Hello, everyone. Hello, Ruby. Greetings for Ruby. More greetings for Ruby. Ready for the next 2,000 years of history. You're not wrong. Dan wondering if the chat would reset or continue. Have your answer. Well, on here, it reset. But I know that on the YouTube, the comments are there on YouTube. But here, it reset. So, greetings for Dan. More greetings for Dan. By the way, almost all the bad weather scheduled for today seems to be raining out before it gets here. Good. Some nasty stuff over near Josh, but it seems to be weakening. That's good to know. That's good. Good for your area. Sad for Josh. Yeah. Couldn't go to Nick's little convention today, but I hope it worked out for them. I heard that. I heard that on Facebook. It's never fun getting sick. Yes, but the tornado threat down here switched to just thunderstorms before it got to Josh. Nice. Good to know. Oh, good. Indeed, I worry about him a lot during bad weather. Yeah. Since Foxy is in here, don't forget to like and share. She was working on our new laptop. Well, not even really working on it. She was just downloading anti-spyware and getting rid of the evil that is McAfee. Downloading different browsers because Microsoft Edge is garbage. And Donna greeting me. How's it going, Donna? And Midnight joining us. What's up, Sword People? Hey, Midnight. Greetings from Midnight. Greetings from Midnight. There's Foxy strolling in 4 minutes late. Shame on you. Thanks, Donna. For some reason, could not find the stream. Interesting. Huh. Greetings for Foxy and me. Been setting up a laptop. Yep. Hey, Foxy, you're welcome. And I know how trying to find it can be. Yeah. Foxy, congrats on the perfectly functional laptop that only needed to allow updates. That's right. Yep. Seems to be handling things well now that I've fought it into submission. Yep. New desk chair is working out well, even though it took me 2 days to assemble. Were the instructions in Swedish? Is that IKEA? Is IKEA Swedish? Swedish. Wow. Yeah. Thanks, Thesis. Feeling better. Whitman dude took very good care of me. Good. I'm glad to hear it. Holy updates. Yep. Bit older and doesn't have much RAM, but it handles Discord, so green rooming should be easier. That's kind of the idea. Actually, my original idea was set it up right here next to me. And when I'm doing my game streams, to have the regular game here on the desktop and the laptop over here so that I could get on my higher level characters to help me, but the laptop didn't want to download the game client. So that's not going to work. So what I might end up doing, and I know I talked about this during the last game stream, I might have her get on her desktop, get on my other account with my higher level character, and just basically tank for me in the higher level dungeons, at least until the dungeons out-level that character. So, yeah. Great Foxy. Instructions were in French and Arabic, but the photos were in English. Okay. Yeah, use the donut. That's kind of the idea. All right, so we left off last time with the Han Dynasty. This is my practice Hanjin with the very distinctive Han Dynasty guard. And also, I want to, sorry if I got a little too close to the microphone there, remind people, if they didn't remember, daylight savings starts tomorrow. So by the time I actually get to my game stream on Monday, by the time the stream is over, the sun will still be up. So, yeah. Daylight savings at 2 a.m. tomorrow morning. Set clocks back. Sleep as much as you can. Well, no, set clocks forward, not set clocks back. Spring forward, fall back. That's how I always remember. I learned that in elementary school, I think. Yeah, they do definitely both suck. But yeah, by the time my game stream is over, the sun will still be up on Monday. So we left off on the Han Dynasty, which, according to the little picture that I have on the thumbnail, is about the halfway point. There's, a little bit, maybe slightly less than half, but we're going to endeavor to finish this tonight. So, Han Dynasty, from 202 BC to 9 AD, and then from 25 AD to 220 AD. The 14 years in between was the Qin Dynasty. But for the most part, from 202 BC to 220 AD is the Han Dynasty. You had the Han people, the major ethnic group of modern China. Spoken Chinese and written Chinese are referred to as the Han language and Han characters. The pinnacle of society and culture was the Han Emperor. He presided over the government, but shared power with both the nobility and the ministers who came from the scholarly gentry class. The Han Emperor was divided into commanderies, directly controlled by the central government, and also semi-autonomous kingdoms. The kingdoms lost their autonomy, especially during the Rebellion of the Seven States, from the reign of Emperor Wu from 141 to 87 BC. The Chinese court officially sponsored Confucianism in education and politics. They had great periods of economic prosperity, as well as significant growth in the economy of money, which was first established during the Zhou Dynasty. Coinage, minted by the Han government in 119 BC, remained standard currency until the Tang Dynasty over 400 years later. So the coins that the Han Dynasty created were the standard currency for over 400 years. This is why the Han Dynasty is my favorite of all dynasties. It's not just the sword, although I do love the Han sword. From the very first time, slight aside, but I promise I'll get back to it. From the very first time I saw a Hanjian, I was completely blown away. The design, everything about the Hanjian just appealed to me in a way that was indescribable. Every other Jian that I've ever seen in my martial arts life has been from the Qing or Ming dynasty. They have very different style of guard. Once I saw the Hanjian, I was done. Like, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 5 Han design Jian. It's crazy. But anyway, to finance the military campaigns of the Han Dynasty and the settlement of newly conquered frontier territories, the Han government nationalized salt and iron industries in 117 BC, which unfortunately created monopolies that were later repealed during the Eastern Han. The Han Dynasty is kind of separated into the Eastern and Western Han, but it's still the Han Dynasty. There were significant advances in science and technology during the Han Dynasty, including the invention of paper making, rudders for steering ships, negative numbers in mathematics, raised relief maps, hydraulic-powered armillary spheres for astronomy, and seismometers that discern cardinal direction of earthquakes by using inverted pendulums. So there was a lot of stuff that happened during the Han Dynasty. They had many conflicts with the Xiongnu, which was a nomadic confederation centered in the eastern Eurasian steppes. The Xiongnu defeated the Han in 200 BC, prompting the Han to appease the Xiongnu with a policy of marriage alliances and payment of tributes, though the Xiongnu continued to raid Han's northern borders. That policy changed in 133 BC when Emperor Wu began a series of military campaigns. His forces cleaved through the inner Asian territory of the Tarim Basin, establishing the Silk Road trade route, and the Xiongnu were eventually defeated and forced to accept a status as vassals of the Han, though the lands of the north were later overrun by another nomadic confederation of the Xianbei. Emperor Wu also launched successful conquest in the south, annexing Nanyue in 111 and Dian in 109 BC. He further expanded the Han territory into the northern Korean peninsula, where Han forces conquered the Gojiuseon and established Xuantu and Leiliang commanderies in 108 BC. After 92 AD, palace eunuchs increasingly involved themselves in the dynasty's court politics, engaging in power struggles between various consort clans of the empresses and empress dowagers, and imperial authority was seriously challenged by large Taoist religious societies, because remember, they believed that Confucianism should be the official religion. So Taoism was kind of pushed to the back, which created the Yellow Turban Rebellion, and the 5 Pecks of Rice Rebellion. Following the death of Emperor Ling in 189 AD, the palace eunuchs were massacred by military officers, allowing members of the aristocracy and military governors to become warlords and divide the empire again. The Han Dynasty came to an end in 220 AD when Cao Pi, king of Wei, usurped the throne of Emperor Xian. At least Inigo has been getting us up ready for the switch by waking us up at 6:30 instead of 7:30. Yeah. Dynasty had some lasting power. You're not wrong. Just occurred to me to ask which dynasty the literary character Fu Manchu belonged to. That's actually a good question. Waved at Foxy as she walked by like she could see me. Well, let's see if we can find a year. Dr. Fu Manchu is a supervillain who was introduced in a series of novels by English author Sax Rohmer beginning shortly before World War I and continuing for another 40 years. Do we have... 1932 film. 1912. I'm not seeing... Okay, here we go. In the novel Fu Manchu's Bride, 1933, Dr. Fu Manchu claims to hold doctorates from 4 Western universities. While in Emperor Fu Manchu, 1959, he states that he attended Heidelberg University and the University of Edinburgh. At the time of their first encounter in 1911, Dr. Petrie believed that Fu Manchu was more than 70 years old. That would mean he studied his first doctorate in the 1860s or 1870s. Okay, so that would be the Qing Dynasty, basically. Figured at least someone would wave, needed more water. Poor computer's working on its last update. Poor thing has had a day. Hugs for Foxy. But it works now that the updates are done. Yeah, imagine that. So between the Eastern and the Western Han, we have the Xin Dynasty, which is from 9 BCE to 23 BCE. Established by the Han Dynasty consort, King Wang Mang, who usurped the throne from Emperor Ping of Han, and the infant crown prince Liu Ying. The Ying dynasty ruled for over a decade before it was overthrown by rebels. After Wang's death, the Han dynasty was restored by Liu Xiu, a distant descendant of Emperor Jing of Han. Therefore, the Xin dynasty is often considered an interregnum of the Han, dividing it into the Western and Eastern Han. So it was just kind of a pause of the Han dynasty. After the Han, we have the Three Kingdoms period. Qin Shi Huang did everything he possibly could to unite the country into one single autonomous region. When he dies, the Six Kingdoms happens. Then you have the Han dynasty, once again, trying to combine everything into one single region. And of course, the eunuchs have to come along and screw everything up. So that now, again, you have a separation, the Three Kingdoms period. The Three Kingdoms, if anyone has ever heard of Dynasty Warriors, Romance of the Three Kingdoms, it's a period of Chinese history where you have three separate warlords who are all claiming that they have the right to rule the country. You have the Shu Kingdom, you have the Wu Kingdom, and you have the Sun. All three of them are saying, no, you can't rule this country. I rule this country. No, you can't rule it. I rule it. All of them are saying that we are the legitimate rulers of the country. You have Liu Bei, who led the Kingdom of Shu. You have Wei, which was ruled by Cao Cao. And you have the Wu, which is ruled by Sun Quan. All of them are saying, we have legitimate claim to the throne of the country. This lasted 60 years. These three men all claiming that they have the right to rule the country. And it started with Cao Wei claiming that they have the right, and then it just kind of dominoed from there. You have Cao Wei established in 220 AD, and it ends in 280 with the conquest of Wu by the kingdom of Jin. The period immediately preceding the Three Kingdoms, from 184 to 220, was marked by infighting amongst all of the warlords across China as the authority of the Han Dynasty collapsed. From 220 to 263, you have a stable arrangement between Cao Wei, Shu Han, and Eastern Wu. This broke down in 263 when the kingdom of Shu was invaded by the Wei kingdom. Then in 266, you have the usurpation of Cao Wei by the kingdom of Jin, and ultimately the conquest of Wu by Jin in 280. This is considered, the Three Kingdoms period is considered one of the most dangerous periods in Chinese history. There were multiple plagues, famines, civil wars. A nationwide census in 280 by the Jin Kingdom showed a total of 2,459,840 households and 16,163,863 individuals, which is a fraction of the 10 million households and 56 million individuals. Technology advanced because of Zhuge Liang, who invented the wooden ox, the wheelbarrow, and improved on the repeating crossbow. Ma Jun, the mechanical engineer of Wei, invented a hydraulic-powered mechanical puppet theater for Emperor Ming of Wei, chain pumps for irrigation of gardens, the south-pointing chariot, which is a non-magnetic directional compass. The authoritative record of this era is Chen Shou's Record of the Three Kingdoms, which you have multiple video games, movies, TV series, all based on Record of the Three Kingdoms. The Yellow Turban Rebellion was a prelude to the breakup. You have the Battle of Red Cliff, which I did an entire Teahouse on just this one battle. You have these warlords who I personally, because as I said, when I was talking about the Battle of Red Cliff and when I was talking about Guan Yu, I think Liu Bei had the only legitimate claim to the throne because he actually had blood ties to the previous emperors. Cao Cao and Sun Quan were generals. They were warlords. They did not have a legitimate claim to the throne. But that doesn't really matter because warlords are going to warlord. So next, we have the further separations of the Northern Zhou, the Western Wei, and Northern Qi dynasties, which were kind of tribal dynasties. You know, the Xiongnu and the Xianbei, they came from the steppes of kind of Mongolia in that area. They had trade with the Turkish people. And that lasted from the end, sorry, my eye itches, of the Three Kingdoms period until the founding of the Sui dynasty in 581 CE. That basically brought about the reunification of China under the Sui dynasty. It brought the northern and southern dynasties to a close and ended a prolonged period of political division since the War of the Eight Princes. The Sui rebuilt the state, reestablished many imperial institutions, and laid the foundation for the Tang dynasty, which, after toppling the Sui, would ultimately preside over a new golden age in Chinese history. The Sui is compared to the Qin dynasty in that it also unified China after the prolonged period of division, undertook wide-ranging reforms and construction projects, and consolidated state power. The dynasty was founded by Yang Jian, or Emperor Wen, who was a member of the military aristocracy that had developed in the northwest during the period of division. The Sui capital was based in Daxiang, but later moved to Luoyang, which had been refounded as a planned city. Wen and his successor, Emperor Yang, undertook various centralizing reforms, among them an equal field system that aimed to reduce economic inequality and improved agricultural productivity. You had the standardization and reunification of the coinage that we talked about with the Han Dynasty. The Sui encouraged the spread of Buddhism through the empire. And by the midpoint of the Sui Dynasty, the state experienced considerable prosperity, enjoying vast agricultural surplus and rapid population growth. The Sui engaged in many construction projects, including the Grand Canal, the extension of the Great Wall, and the reconstruction of Luoyang. The canal linked Luoyang in the east with Chang'an in the west, with eastern economic and agricultural centers towards Jiangdu and Yuhang. After a series of military campaigns against the Goguryeo in the Korean Peninsula, which had ended in defeat in 614 CE, the dynasty disintegrated amid popular revolts that culminated in the assassination of Emperor Yang by a minister in 618 AD. Next up is the Tang Dynasty. From 618 to 690, then from 705 to 907. From 690 to 705 is Wuzhou. This is, much like the Han Dynasty, considered to be a golden age, as I just mentioned with the previous dynasty. The Tang Dynasty, or the Tang Empire, was an imperial dynasty that ruled from 618 to 607. And after that was the 5 dynasties and 10 kingdoms. Historians generally regard the Tang as a high point in Chinese civilization and a golden age of cosmopolitan culture. Tang territory, acquired through military campaigns, rivaled the Han Dynasty. The Li family founded the dynasty after taking advantage of a period of Sui decline and inaugurating a period of progress and stability in the first half. The dynasty was formally interrupted when Empress Wu Zetian seized the throne, proclaiming the Wuzhou dynasty and becoming the only legitimate Chinese empress regent. The Anlushan rebellion led to devastation and the decline of central authority during the latter half. Like the Sui dynasty, the Tang maintained civil service by recruiting scholar officers through standardized examinations and recommendations. The capital was Chang'an, which was the world's most populous city for much of the Tang dynasty. 2 separate censuses in the 7th and 8th centuries estimated the population of the Tang dynasty at about 50 million people, which grew to 80 million people by the end of the dynasty. From all of its subjects, the dynasty raised professional and conscripted armies of hundreds of thousands of troops to contend with the nomads of northern China. The Silk Road allowed faraway kingdoms and states to pay tribute, while the Tang also indirectly controlled several regions through a protectorate system. The Tang also exerted powerful control over East Asian nations like Japan and Korea. Chinese culture flourished during the Tang era. It is considered the greatest age for Chinese poetry. Court music flourished. Historical literature and encyclopedias flourished, as well as geographical works. Innovations included the development of woodblock printing. Buddhism became a major influence on the culture. So the Tang was very much a big, big deal. Now, we might have to speed round through these last 5 dynasties. Eunuchs and grand viziers both tend to screw everything up. Yep. Warlord's going to warlord. Yep. Surprising how long the abundance of warlords actually lasted, especially when they were constantly stabbing themselves and each other in the back. Say that because of how many of the later ones favored European and U.S. firearms as a symbol of power and authority. This is true. Mauser pistols, Lugers, and Colt 1911s. Yeah. All right, so next up is the 5 dynasties and 10 kingdoms period. This lasted from 907 to 960. You have, yet again, because this happens every single damn time, there's an era of prosperity amongst the people. You have a separation again. You have 5 dynastic states that quickly succeeded one another in the central plain, and more than a dozen concurrent states, collectively known as the 10 kingdoms, were established in southern China. It was a prolonged period of multiple political divisions. It is seen as the beginning with the fall of the Tang Dynasty in 907 and reaching its climax with the founding of the Song Dynasty in 960. In the following 19 years, the Song gradually subdued the remaining states, but the Liao Dynasty still remained in the north and the Xia established in the northwest. Many states had been de facto independent before 907. As the Tang Dynasty's control waned, but the key events was their recognition as sovereign foreign powers. After the collapse of the Tang, again, warlords crowned themselves emperor. There was near constant warfare between the emerging kingdoms and the alliances they formed. All had the ultimate goal of controlling the central plain and establishing themselves as the successor of the Tang Dynasty. The last of the 5 dynasties and 10 kingdoms was the Northern Han, which held out until Song conquered it in 979. For the next several centuries, although the Song controlled much of southern China, they coexisted along with the Liao Dynasty, Jin Dynasty, and various other dynasties in the north. So now we have the Song Dynasty, which lasted from 960 to 1279. Founded when Emperor Taizhou of Song usurped the throne of later Zhou Dynasty and went on to conquer the rest of the 10 kingdoms, ending the 5 dynasties and 10 kingdoms period. The Song Dynasty often came into conflicts with the Liao, the Xia, and the Jin dynasties in northern China. The Song Dynasty is divided into 2 periods. During the northern Song, the capital was in Bianjing, and the dynasty controlled most of what is now eastern China. The Southern Song comprised the period following the loss of control over the northern half of Song territory to the Jurchen-led Jin dynasty in the Jin-Song Wars. The Song court retreated south of the Yangtze, establishing its capital in Lin'an. Although the Song dynasty had lost control of the traditionally Chinese heartlands around the Yellow River, the Southern Song contained a large population and productive agricultural land, sustaining a robust economy. In 1234, the Jin dynasty was conquered by the Mongols, who took control of northern China, maintaining uneasy relations with the Southern Song. Mongke Khan, the fourth great Khan of the Mongol Empire, died in 1259 while besieging the mountain castle Daoyucheng in Chongqing. His younger brother Kublai Khan was proclaimed the new Great Khan, and in 1271 founded the Yuan dynasty. Which brings us to the Yuan dynasty. The Yuan dynasty was led by Mongolia as a successor state of the Mongol Empire. It was established by Kublai Khan and lasted from 1271 to 1368. Although Genghis Khan's enthronement in 1206 was described in Chinese as the Han-style title of emperor, it was not until 1271 that Kublai Khan officially proclaimed the dynasty in the traditional Han style, and the conquest was not complete until 1279. Computer, lights. The Yuan dynasty was the first dynasty founded by a non-Han ethnicity and ruled all of China proper. This is when you have the separation of the Han Chinese and what would later be considered the Manchu Chinese. There's my light. When the Yuan came into power, they made rules that tried to force the Han Chinese into living their way of life. That was when you have the queue, the long Chinese ponytail. That was implemented during the Yuan, and that, according to certain scholars and historians, was meant to symbolize a horse's ass. The Yuan, the Mongols, were not nice to the Han Chinese. You have Mongolian script being introduced into the greater Chinese diaspora. It's basically trying to make the greater Han Chinese people live as Mongolians. And this lasted until 1368 AD. Which brings us to the more modern Ming Dynasty, which lasted from 1368 to 1644, officially known as the Great Ming or the Da Ming in Chinese. This was following the collapse of the Yuan dynasty. The Ming was the last imperial Chinese dynasty ruled by the Han people, although the primary capital of Beijing fell in 1644 to a rebellion. Numerous regimes ruled by remnants of the Ming imperial family, collectively called the Southern Ming, survived until 1662. The Hongwu Emperor was the founder of the Ming Dynasty, and he attempted to create a society of self-sufficient rural communities ordered by a rigid, immobile system that would guarantee and support a permanent class of soldiers for his empire. The standing army of the Great Ming exceeded 1 million troops, and the dockyard in Nanjing had the largest navy in the world. The Hongwu Emperor also took great care to break the power of eunuchs and magnates, so that all of his sons could continue to guide. You have just one line of people. But this failed when his teenage successor, the Jianwen Emperor, attempted to curtail his uncle's power, prompting the Jingnan campaign, which was an uprising that placed the Prince of Yan upon the throne as Yongle Emperor in 1402. The Yongle Emperor established Yan as a secondary capital, renamed it Beijing, constructed the Forbidden City, and restored the Grand Canal, and restored the imperial examinations and official appointments. He rewarded his eunuch supporters and employed them as a counterweight against the scholar bureaucrats of Confucianism. One of the eunuchs, Zheng He, led 7 voyages of exploration into the Indian Ocean and went as far as Arabia and the eastern coast of Africa. Hongwu and Yongle emperors had also expanded the empire's rule into Inner Asia. By the 16th century, the expansion of European trade spread the Columbian exchange of crops, plants, and animals into China, including chili peppers for Szechuan cuisine and productive maize and potatoes. The growth of trade with the Portuguese, the Spanish, and the Dutch created a demand for Chinese products, which produced an influx of South American silver. This abundance remonetized the Ming economy, whose paper money had suffered hyperinflation and was no longer trusted. Traditional Confucians opposed such prominent role for commerce and the newly rich that it created, which unfortunately caused a slowdown in agricultural during the Little Ice Age. The value of silver rapidly increased because of a disruption in the supply of imported silver, making it impossible for Chinese farmers to pay their taxes. Combined with crop failure, floods, and an epidemic, the dynasty collapsed in 1644 as Li Zicheng's rebel forces entered Beijing. Li then established the Shun dynasty, but was defeated shortly after by the Manchu-led 8 Banners army of the Qing dynasty with the help of the defecting Ming general Wu Songui. Now we have the last of the Chinese dynasties, the Qing dynasty, from 1889 to 1912. So if Fu Manchu was taking his classes in the late 1800s, he was probably born in the late Ming or early Qing dynasties. This is another Manchu-led imperial dynasty and an early modern empire. It is the last of the imperial dynasties. It is succeeded by the Republic of China. At the height of its power, the empire stretched from the Sea of Japan in the east to the Pamir Mountains in the west, from the Mongolian Plateau in the north to the South China Sea. It emerged from the later Jin dynasty, founded in 1616 and proclaimed in 1636. The dynasty seized control of the Ming capital in northern China in 1644. which is traditionally considered the start of the dynasty's rule. It lasted until the Xinhai Revolution in October 1911, led to the abdication of the last emperor in February of 1912. Qing dynasty was a multi-ethnic dynasty. The Qing controlled the most territory of any dynasty in Chinese history, and in 1790 was the fourth largest empire in world history at that point. It was the most populous state with over 426 million citizens in 1907. This was, I made a mistake when I was talking about the Yuan dynasty. The Qing dynasty is when the Manchus and the Han were basically separated. This was when the Manchus created the Qiu, or the Kui, the horse's ass. The Manchus basically considered themselves to be better than the Han Chinese, the official Chinese, and they wanted to beat them down. So they did all these things to try and beat down the people. Didn't really work very well for them, but what they tried to do. To maintain prominence over its neighbors, the Qing leveraged and adapted the tributary system employed by previous dynasties, enabling their continued predominance in affairs with countries like Korea, Vietnam, and Inner Asia. The Qing dynasty reached its apex during the reign of Qianlong Emperor from 1735 to 1796. He supervised Confucian cultural projects. After his death, the dynasty faced internal revolts, economic disruption, corruption, foreign intrusion, and the reluctance of Confucian elites to change their mindset. Following China's defeat in the Opium Wars, Western colonial powers forced the Qing to sign unequal treaties, granting them trading privileges, giving them ports under their control. The Taiping Rebellion from 1850 to 1864 and the Dungan Revolt from 1862 to 1877 led to the deaths of over 20 million people. The Qing dynasty basically fell in 1912 following the Xinhai Rebellion, which overthrew the Qing dynasty and ended imperial history. I know that I kind of speed run through those last four dynasties. And if you want more information, I can very easily do more about each dynasty in and of itself, because there's plenty of information just about each individual dynasty. But this is kind of more of an overview. And it still lasted 2 episodes. I hope that people enjoyed hearing about the majority of the Chinese dynasties. Could be a 2-year course. You're not wrong. You're not wrong at all. I could probably do 3 or 4 episodes just on the Han and the Tang, because there was a lot going on during those time periods. Like, thank you, Midnight. Very informative. I appreciate it. You have court intrigue, you have rebellions, you have uprisings, all of these things that shape and form what's going on. Been very interesting. Thank you, Donna. Sax Romer did pay much attention to actual history, was writing romance, adventure, pulp fiction. Nice. Nicely done. Thank you. Didn't pay attention. It's good to have an idea about the length of the dynasties. Yeah, and a lot of them did last for extended periods of time, with the exception of like short little like rebellion dynasties that were usually focused around one person or one family. And I will be back on Monday for my game stream, but I will not be back next Saturday so that everyone can go and watch Joe and Rich and Dawn over on Kick. And I think, at least the last time he did this, he talked about seeing if he could, cross-platform it to the Indie CD YouTube channel. So you might be able to watch it there. Glad to learn more. I'm glad, kid. And yes, learning is very fun. That's one of the things that pushed me to continue my martial arts journey as much as my historical journey. Is just I enjoy learning things. It really can be, and I do enjoy teaching. This is true. Curiosity was one of the major driving factors of my journey in life. You know, when I find something that I didn't know, I have to go and learn more. I have to. I think I've mentioned this a few times before, but back when I used to watch Forge and Fire with my dad, he was always amazed when they revealed what historical weapon they were going to be building. He's always, how do you know so many of these? How do you know so much, so much history? How do you know these weapons? It's like, because I learned, because I listened. And the ones I didn't know, as soon as I got home, I had to go and research that weapon. There was one African, pretty sure it was African, called the, I'm going to butcher this because I don't speak any African languages, but it's like the Nabi Nulu or something like that. I had no idea, no clue about that weapon. So as soon as that show was over and I came home, I had to come home and find out more about it. And it was like a throwing weapon that also was very vaguely axe shaped. Trying to see if I can, I know I'm not spelling this right. See if I can find a list of, oh God. Let's try and do this one because I know I'm going to screw this up. Because I think that's it. No, that's not it. Wow. I'm looking up African weaponry on Wikipedia. Let's try something else. Parents were dead set against me becoming a school teacher. Wound up becoming a writer who tutored people in composition grammar. So you became one anyway. Yeah, exactly. Well, I think I was way off then. Maybe that's the one. Maybe that's it. The Kapinga. Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of. There we go. The Nabi Nula was just kind of vaguely sword-shaped. Just had to sneak into a sideways. So did I. We're going to share screens just really quickly. Because this thing has a very not the green room piece to it that I always enjoy. This is a Kapinga. It's an African throwing axe. This is just one design of them. There's some that are even more intricate. But you see this blade right here? That's pointing in completely the opposite direction? Yeah, that's meant to represent a penis. You're literally throwing your dick at your opponent. And the bigger the blade, the bigger the wielder's dick is supposed to be. So, yeah. Yeah, exactly, Carl. We got to come over here to our media assets because I got to do this because this is very not the green room. It's meant to represent a penis. So, there you go, folks. Kind of a quick and dirty 2-episode overview of the dynasties of actually all of Chinese history. I hope to see you on Monday when I do my game stream. I may make an appearance over on IndieCD's Creatives of Play on Wednesday. Again, you will not see me next Saturday. So everyone, go over to Kick and watch Joe and Don and Rich talk about how awesome IndieCD.org is. And I will see you all next time. 再见。